Welcome to Math Companion. Now, we are going to solve very interesting trigonometric uh, questions. And let's start with the first one. Now, before we solve the first equation, we should have the understanding of the four quadrants of the of trigonometry. So the first quadrant, all the angles are positive. In the second quadrant, only signs are positive. In the third quadrant, only tangents are positive, and in the fourth, only cosines are positive. So the best way to understand this, you should just say all students take coffee. All right. Now, when you look at the angle 480, so we should be working out what is tan 480. So by making a rotation, right, 480 lies in the second quadrant. And in the second quadrant, only signs are positive. But if you want to know what is the equivalent of 480 in the second quadrant, it's simply going to be 480, you subtract 360 degrees. So this is simply equals to tan 480 minus 360 degrees, which is equals to the tan of 120. So what is tan 120 when you compare it with an angles that are less than 90 degrees? This is equals to the negative tan 60. And negative tan 60, negative tan 60 is simply equal to negative the square root of 3. All right, now the next angle that we need to look at is sine 300. Now 300 is found in the fourth quadrant, whereby only cosines are positive. Now, therefore, in the fourth quadrant, it's going to be compared to sine 360 minus 300. But if this angle will be anything less than 90 degrees, what should it be? The signs are usually negative. So this is equal to negative sine 60. Negative sine 60 is simply equal to negative the square root of 3 over 2. All right. Now, another angle that we need to look at, which is a little bit confusing, is this. Negative sine 135. So, negative sine 135. This is just, we know sine negative 135 is the same as negative sine 135, which can be written as negative sine 180 minus 135. And therefore, in this case, it's going to be negative sine 45. 180 minus 135, you're getting 45 degrees. So sine 45 degrees is equals to the square root of 2 over 2, which is, because we have a negative before sine, so it's going to be the negative of the square root of 2 over 2. Okay. Now, another angle that we need to be looking at is we have the cosine 225 and the sine 104 in the numerator. So I'm referring to this one as well as this one here. Okay, so what is sine 104. So sine 104, when you compare it with an angle that is less than 90 degrees, is just the same as sine 180 minus 104. And the answer for this would be equals to sine 76. Now we need to remind ourselves to evaluate this one further. We need to remind ourselves the following formula. We know if I'm talking about sine theta is actually the same as cosine 90 minus theta. All right. So in this case, our solution, if we want to talk about the angle that we already have here, and we write it in terms of cosine so that we can relate with what is in the numerator. Therefore, this is going to be, sine 76 is also equal to the cosine of 90 minus 76, right? So, which is equals to cos 90 minus 76 is equals to cosine 14. All right, now our next part for the value in the denominator again. Now we have cosine 225. Cosine 225. 225 is actually found in the third quadrant. And in the third quadrant, only tangents are positive. Therefore, if we are looking for the cosine, it's going to be negative. So it's going to be negative cosine. If we want to find an angle that is less than 90 degrees, so it's going to be cosine 225 minus 180, right? So that is going to be equal to negative cosine 45. Negative cosine 45, the answer for this is going to be equal to negative the square root of 2 over 2. Now, let us solve the equation now in its entirety. Remember, the equation is supposed to be tan 480 multiplied by sine 300 multiplied by cosine 14 multiplied by sine negative 135 divide by sine 104 multiplied by cosine 225. Now, we know we found what is 480, so it's equals to, we got this answer in the first calculation. 480 is equals to negative the square root of 3. Sine 300, we found it as negative the square root of 3 over 2. And then after that, we have cosine 14. We are going to leave it like this because 14 is not a special angle. Then you multiply by sine negative 135. We worked it out here already. Sine negative 135 is the same as negative the square root of 2 over 2. And then everything here, we are going to divide by sine 104. We did it here, our second last calculation, which we got it as cosine 14. Multiply by cosine 214, cosine 225, sorry, cosine 225, we got the answer already, is negative the square root of 2 over 2. Multiplication here. All right, so we start to simplify this. The square root of 2, negative square root of 2, and negative square root of 2 is going to cancel out. Cosine 14 and cosine 14 will cancel out. Now, ultimately, we are going to remain with negative the square root of 3 times. So here we are left with negative the square root of 3 times negative the square root of 3 over 2. This is just like over 1. So when we multiply by negative the square root of 3 times negative the square root of 3, you get 3. And then in the numerator, 1 times 2, you are going to get 2. All right, so that is the final answer for part A. Please watch the next video to see the solution for part B of the question above. So part B to be continued later. I want to remind you, dear friends, please subscribe and click the notification button to get updated of all the interesting mathematics calculation that we keep on posting here. Thank you so much.